Good day, everyone. I'm Warren Cersley. And June 1st of 2013, I will have had the high honor and privilege of running with the best here in this beautiful city and in this fabulous fire department. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today for a few minutes on subjects that are near and dear to my heart, and that is firefighters and their safety. We talk about safety. We write SOPs and SOGs and guidelines and directives and operational procedures about safety. But it's my firm belief that until you and I and each of us across this nation make a commitment, a personal commitment to operate safely every time, every day, every call, our safety numbers will continue as they are now, which I think are at unacceptable levels. Years ago, I was camping in Sandbridge, Virginia, and in between rain showers, I went outside and I fired up the hibachi. And it was cooking, and a fellow next door who couldn't get his grill to light came over and he cooked on my grill. And he struck up a conversation and it led to employment, and he said, "Where do you work and what do you do?" And I told him that I was a firefighter in this town. And he looked at me and he said, "I couldn't do that kind of work. It's far too dangerous." And when I asked him what kind of work he did, he told me that he was a coal miner in West Virginia. And so I guess safety depends on your point of view. As many of you have heard me speak on the subject of August 21st of 1977, that is a day that my sister was killed in an automobile crash at 10:50 a.m. on one of the most beautiful Sunday mornings you could ever imagine. Also at 10:50 a.m. on August 21st, 1977, I was pulled over in James City County, Virginia, by a Virginia State Trooper, and the charge was 61 miles an hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. I had a t-shirt on with the fire department logo on it, and when he invited me back to his nice air-conditioned cruiser, he saw the logo and he started talking about salaries and working conditions and how I liked it and so on and so forth. He asked me how long I had been driving, and when I told him since I was 17, I added that I had never been stopped and never had a ticket. I'll never forget what that trooper said next to me as he pulled out his citation book and began to write. He told me, "Everybody has got to start sometime. Everybody has got to start sometime." So that applies to safety. When will you start? I've already started. I've improved many of the things that I used to do that I found out wasn't the right way to do it, wasn't the safe way to do it, and the end results were not going to be good for our department or for me personally. So I made a personal commitment to operate in a safe manner, including wearing the seatbelt every time that I'm on the apparatus, whether I'm driving or whether I'm riding. I always wear my seatbelt. I miss my Little League Baseball manager very much, even though he's been gone since April 11th of 1974. His name was Captain Bobby Wyatt. He was a bright and shining star in this department. He died when two apparatus ran together on Marshall Street here in the city. They were responding to an alarm at the Coliseum that turned out to be of little consequence. Complacency, that's what injures us as firefighters, and that's what kills us as firefighters. every year, year after year, 75 to 100 firefighters are lost in the line of duty every year in the United States and Canada. That would lead me to ask, is that our acceptable number? Have we reached an acceptable level that we are satisfied with? I am not, and I hope that you are not, and I think that you are not. That number is extremely high. 75 to 100 families lose their loved ones because they went to work. That's unacceptable. My one and only job in this department is to send you home in the same or better condition that you arrived in for work this morning. Everything that I do other than that in the 24-hour day to me is secondary. I have no other ambition in this job than to send you home safely. My friend and a great trainer, Nick Martin, who is the training battalion chief in the city of Columbia, South Carolina, teaches that slow is steady and steady is fast. Slow is steady and steady is fast. I hope that we can apply Chief Martin's saying to safety. Sometimes we can't go as fast as we would like to, but if we practice every day, if we train every day on safety, ways of doing our business better and ways of doing our business safely, we must be slow. Slow is steady, and steady is fast. So train every day on everything that we do. Train on things that we don't do every day, but things that we should know how to do every minute. Train on Mayday procedures. Train on your radio. Train on your Mayday button. Know where it is. What does it feel like with your finger? What does it feel like with the glove? Train when you are assigned to the rapid intervention team. Some people would say, well, I'm stuck on rapid intervention again. You'll realize how important that job is if you are ever the one who has to be called to go and get your fellow firefighter who's fallen through a floor or fallen through a roof or for whatever reason has gone down. We didn't have RIT back in my day, but we did have crews of people who would go in and pick up and rescue downed firefighters. And as one who has been on both ends of that equation, it's much more rewarding to go and get your brother or sister firefighter when they are down than it is to be the downed firefighter who's fallen through a floor. And your friends and your co-workers have to come and get you. So RIT, my point, is very, very important. Knowing your Mayday procedures is very, very important. It's no longer the day when you should ever feel bad about if you think it's time to push that Mayday button, push it. I can promise you that no one will ever make fun of you or put you down or laugh at you. If you thought you were lost, you probably were. If you thought you were in trouble, it's a pretty good chance that you were in trouble. You push the Mayday button. We'll come and get you. And please practice, 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 and train like champions. It has happened here. It's going to happen again sooner or later. Our job really doesn't change that much. You can count on the fact that you need to know your Mayday procedures and your rapid intervention procedures like the back of your hand, if not better. When a firefighter goes through a floor or through a roof, it's easy to say, well, I'll run and get a ladder, or I'll run and get a rope. Does that firefighter who's down have that amount of time available to them? How badly are they injured? What did they fall into? Remember, if there's a hole in the floor or if there's a hole in a roof, it would probably caused by fire or by heat or by rot, and who knows what conditions they have fallen into. So also train on breaching. If you can acquire buildings, if you have an acquired building program, train on your breaching procedures. It's like Mayday, it's like RIT, it's like anything else that we don't frequently do. But move it from way down here to something that we need to be quick and expert in, slow, steady, and fast. Train on all of those things. The things that we don't often use are oftentimes the most important things that we can do. Remember that firefighter down, their clock is ticking, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. We seem, in my view, we seem to be injuring and killing firefighters the same way that we did when our department started in 1858. We blame it on the horses was running too fast and our wagon slipped out from under the driver on a cobblestone street. One of the firefighters wasn't belted on or belted in and fell on the cobblestones and struck his head. We fall into things, we fall off of things, things fall on us. We're injured and killed in rollover accidents in spite of the fact that our apparatus is so well built. It doesn't really help if you're not belted in. The safety cage that the firefighters ride in, the cab of the apparatus, is designed to withstand a certain amount of forces, but if you're not belted in, the windows don't withstand much force at all, and nor does our physical being. No seatbelt is no excuse. Make it a personal commitment. Make it your habit to wear it, and make your team members wear it as well. Remember that firefighters are surgeons, we're pharmacists, we're airline pilots. I don't get in my job a mulligan, and neither will you. Do we need to install seatbelt activation lights on the dash of the apparatus, and the apparatus won't move until those 4 lights are activated, meaning that the 4 seatbelts are hooked? Or do we need overhead pull-down seatbelts like they have on the roller coasters, and they won't move until they're locked in? You know, what will it take for us to be safe as far as seatbelt compliance? It will take a personal commitment, and I don't think, truthfully, that anything else short of that will work. I talked to you briefly about Captain Wyatt, who died in our apparatus crash. Captain Wyatt left his widow and 3 small children. He was also a bright and shining star in this fire department, and he died at 42 years old. And in my humble opinion, he died for absolutely nothing. And that's hard for me to say, but that is true. On the wall of our fire station number 6, you can go by and you can look at the name tag and the badge and the awards that were worn by one of our beloved firefighters whose name was Pete Pearson. Pete Pearson was injured when he was fighting a fire in an abandoned building on the island downtown. And they were walking through this building, and Pete stepped on a piece of plywood that was on the floor. He went through that piece of plywood, and he ended up a floor below, and he ended up with a broken back. And that giant of a man spent the remaining 20 years or more in a wheelchair. I didn't know Pete Pearson at that time. I had just been in this department for a short period of time, but I did go to the hospital to visit with Pete. And I sat with him for about an hour, and he talked about the firefighting and about the job and how much he loved it, and you could feel that he loved the job just from listening to him talk. And as I was preparing to leave, Pete shook my hand, but he wouldn't let go. And he told me, he said, "Warren, be careful out there. This job can be dangerous." He said the morning that I was injured, I was bench pressing 350 pounds, and that night I was in a wheelchair. I can't give you any safety message that's stronger than the words of Pete Pearson. Consider, who are we sharing the road with? We all know that our sirens bounce, the sound bounces off of buildings downtown. People hear it, but they don't know where we're going. In this day and time, people may be eating or texting or tweeting or playing the air guitar. They're playing the music loudly, or they're dancing, or they're lost, or they're unfamiliar with the area. And they panic when we run up behind them and we scare them to death. And our mistake is that if we ever assume that they are going to move over correctly, or they are going to all stop when their light turns red, we're making a critical safety mistake that is going to injure us and injure the other party if we have a collision. I was responding across town to a fire call, and as I was approaching a major intersection, I couldn't help but think that the vehicle that I was assigned to had been involved in 2 crashes at this major intersection that I was approaching. And I was thinking about that as I was driving. I hope my light is green. I hope I don't have to negotiate across this big, wide intersection. But if I do, I'll do it safely. Before I got to the intersection, cars were pulling over to the right, acknowledging my siren and red lights. And then there was a car in front of me who would not pull over to the right, and I refused to pass them on the right. The driver of the other vehicle kept looking up in the rearview mirror at me and then going back to driving, and look up at me and go back to driving. And the third time she looked over, I asked her to move over like this with a hand signal, and she saw me do that, and she continued to drive in the left lane and refused to move over. After a few more blocks, this kind lady decided that she was going to stop in front of me, and she did. And she got out of her car, and I cut the siren off, and I got out of our car, and I said, "Ma'am, if you don't mind, in this state, you're supposed to pull into the right lane and yield to emergency vehicles who are responding with lights and siren." And I learned a lesson that day when the lady responded to me by signing. She did not hear a word I said. She didn't understand the lights and the siren talk or the Virginia state law. This kind lady, who didn't know what to do when I got behind her, was a deaf mute. So think about who you're sharing the road with. Don't make assumptions. Every year at the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, and also in Colorado Springs at the IAFF Memorial, our fire service memorializes that 75 to 100 members who have been lost in any given year. My hope is that each of you at some point in your life will be able to go to both of those ceremonies at least once. It is moving and stirring, and it grabs at every emotion that we as firefighters can possibly have. It also is my hope that none of you will have to present a flag to a loved one at this ceremony, as I did in Colorado Springs, to the widow of our beloved Lieutenant Bernard Emerson, Jr. I also accompanied Lieutenant Emerson's sisters and knocked on the door of his father, Captain retired Bernard Emerson Sr. I would also hope that none of y'all would ever have to do what I did. And that you would understand how painful that is to a family, but also to us who have to serve in that way. It was my honor to serve the Emerson family. It was my honor to present. It was my honor to be asked to accompany the family members to retired Captain Emerson's house, but it was one of the hardest things that I will ever have to do in my lifetime, on duty or off. At the memorial service in Colorado Springs, you arrive one day and the entire group practices twice that day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. The second day you practice one time, and the third day is the actual ceremony. There were, I believe, 500 and a few honor guard members who participated in the ceremony. Never met each other, and it turns out to be one of the most beautiful and moving ceremonies that anyone could ever wish to see. The bagpipers play and the drums play and the fifes, and it is beautiful, beautiful to behold, not to mention the beautiful scenery that is surrounding the Firefighters Memorial in Colorado Springs. I had my speech rehearsed of what I was going to say to Mrs. Emerson when I presented Lieutenant Emerson's flag to her. But while I was seated in rows of 10, and 10 people would go to the front of the memorial, and when they read the name of the firefighter that you are representing, they lower your state flag to your shoulder. And once that group of 10, those names have been read, you go to the family and you present and you say the words that you've practiced over and over and over. When I got to Lisa Emerson, she stood and I forgot every word that I was supposed to say to her. Somehow I was able to thank her for Lieutenant Emerson's life, for his friendship, for sharing him with us, and for sharing him with me. But the reason that I had forgotten all of my words that I had practiced was that while I was seated in my row of 10 waiting to go forward to present, there was a new widow on the front row, and she had one of her children on either of her side, and a third child, a little girl, was running around in front of her mother throughout the entire ceremony. And she kept saying, "Where is my daddy? I want my daddy. Why is my daddy not here?" My question today to you is, why indeed? Why indeed? Every day, every run is my big game. It's your hose, it's your tools, it's your apparatus, it's your truck, it's your gloves, it's your light, it's your team, it's your battalion, and it's your department. It's your life. Take ownership. Own it. Read every day that you come to work. Be prepared to spend a certain amount of time in study. This business is constantly changing. It's not static. Read line of duty death reports on the internet. Read the secret list. Read NIOSH reports. Read fireengineering.com. Read firehouse.com. Pay attention to those kind of things. As I repeat, we kill firefighters and we injured firefighters the same way that we did for hundreds of years. And if we don't take steps and personal commitments to improve our own safety, those numbers will stay the same or rise. Some would say that it doesn't happen here. It happened in Charleston, South Carolina, or it happens in Asheville, North Carolina. What happened at Walmart Supermarket in New York City. And yet on our honor roll that hangs in all of our fire stations, it has 38 names on each, and it says that 38 times it can happen here. It did happen here. It happened on Marshall Street. It happened on Deepwater Terminal Road. It happened in a Cape Cod in Southside. Happened in an abandoned building on the island with Pete Pearson, and it happened in our neighboring fire department, Chesterfield County, Virginia. As we all recall the special life and the terrible loss of Brad McNair. As a state trooper told me on my tragic day, August 21st, 1977, when it comes to safety, please, every one of you remember who can hear my voice, remember that everybody has got to start sometime. My day was back in the day. This is not my day anymore. This is your day. Make a personal commitment to safety. Make living safely and working safely every day on the job a habit. You have a great day today and have a safe day tomorrow. And remember, it's a great day for it.